Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see folks joining us. We'll give them just a minute here as we get started with this webinar. And as you join us, feel free to put your information in the chat box, your name and where you're joining us from. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Sharon. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I am so excited to welcome you to a webinar that we've been talking about for some time with these gentlemen here. It's called Getting Started with Artificial Intelligence in Adult Education, and I'm going to introduce our presenters in just a minute. I am joining you live from Washington, D.C., along with our board president, Shaketa Thomas. We took a break from activities on the Hill to talk about this, but we're going to circle back for a second here because it is Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week, and we want to remind you that this afternoon at 2 Eastern Standard Time, we will be celebrating our legislative champions. We will do this on LinkedIn Live. It will be COABE's first time on LinkedIn Live, so we want to encourage you to join us there in the COABE members group at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, because these legislative champions are those that are supporting and funding the work and giving visibility to our efforts. I also wanted to mention that every day from 9 to 10 a.m., we have a podcast called Rise and Shine COABE Podcast with Jeffrey Abramowitz, and I invite you to join us for that. That's been a lot of fun. We've had quite a few reputable guests on there, so we just want to encourage you to check that out. As well, we will be closing out on Friday with Facebook Live with the fellows, and that will be a lot of fun over Facebook, so join us there. And last but not least, we have the National Padlet of Activities. And as we are learning about activities that are taking place all across the country, we're putting them in the Padlet, and you'll be able to have a good overview of everything that's taking place in adult education during AEFL week. So those are just some activities taking place for AEFL week. And now I wanted to introduce you to two gentlemen that we're excited to be working with. Joey Lehrman and Ryan Stivers. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in a second. They're from Impactful Education, and they are joining us here during Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week because we really feel that AI can be used for good, and we're excited to hear from them about how that can be put into use. We know that it can help, for example, shorten workloads if used properly. So we are very excited about what they're going to be talking about, and we wanted to now turn it over to Joey and to Ryan to introduce themselves.
Well, thank you, everybody. We're very excited to be here. We're going to get started with a quick activity. And then while the activity is happening, we're going to introduce ourselves because we know it can be boring to hear us talk about ourselves for a minute. So in the spirit of getting started with something fun, we would like you all to please go to this website. It's called futuretools.io. Futuretools.io. Joey has just put it in the chat. We wanted to start with this because we think that one of the most important philosophical understandings of the impact of AI is that it can impact almost every facet of the work that we do in our lives. When you navigate over here to Future Tools, Joey's going to show us there is literally over 2,000 tools just on this website. This website has tools for chat, for self-improvement, for social media, and if it is blocked at your school, it's totally okay. You'll be able to see Joey navigating through it. What we want you to do is just take a couple minutes and explore the website, look at the different apps. You can sort. We recommend sorting by most upvoted because this is a community-driven website. So you can actually see what types of tools are most popular in what types of segments. So for example, if you wanted to see, motion capture and what was the most popular tool with motion capture, you could select motion capture and then it would just show you the top one, which in this case is an audio to face or an expression camera. So please just take a moment and look through these. One of our favorite, we start with this all the time because we know sometimes people have to go right away. So if you take nothing else out of this call other than this first 30 seconds, that website is a fantastic tool for finding AI tools that are useful. Some of them are free, some of them are not. So please take a look at that. And then as you are looking at that, feel free to share in the chat a tool that you're seeing that you're interested in or that you think might be helpful. And then Joey, any thoughts on this one before we dive in? Okay, so please sort of look through these tools, see if you can find something interesting, share it in the chat, and then we'll do the boring part now of introducing ourselves while you all are looking through that. So my name is Ryan Stivers. I'm one of the founders of Impactful Education with Joey. My experience is that I was actually an adult education student. I dropped out of high school and became an adult education student, graduated and went into the public school sector. I've taught K-12. I've taught adult education students. I've helped run a graduate program at Johns Hopkins University. I currently work with Tulane and Delgado, as well as Impactful. And like Joey, I'm deeply passionate about the work here and the potential impact of AI on adult education. And I will let Joey introduce himself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Joey Lehrman. Great to see so many friendly faces in the crowd. Just want to quickly introduce myself. I am a career adult educator with a background primarily in online learning and technology integration. So looking at AI is just kind of a continuation of what I've always done, which is explore how technology can help us to create better experiences for the adult students we all work with. Great to be here today.
And we also have a much larger team that's involved in all of our design and some of our facilitation. They're not all here today, but their experiences range from working at boot camps, supporting adult learners, to formal higher ed professionals, and actually individuals in the machine learning and AI building space. So what are we going to do today? So we already started with sort of our AI scavenger hunt, which please keep posting those. I'm seeing people talk about Genmo, to teach AI, a bunch of Podstash. Please feel free to keep sharing them. If you've used a tool that's on this site already and can speak to its strength, please let everybody in the chat know. We want to make sure that everybody gets as much useful information as possible. Then we're about to move into what we call the basics of AI, as well as prompt engineering tips and tricks. We're going to do a little fun activity called AI or Not, and then we're going to talk about how to continue exploring AI after today. Hopefully by the end of this session, if we have done our job well, you will understand the AI fundamentals. You'll also see some use cases. Joey's going to actually run through in real time some examples with you of how to leverage AI to make your lives easier. And our hope is that you will walk out of this workshop with at least the confidence to dive into a little bit of practice on your own. And then hopefully, if you're interested, you will join us for a course we're about to chat about where you can get even more. So Impactful is joining with COABE, and we are sponsoring a cohort of learners to take an 8-week intensive course on utilizing AI in adult education with a specific emphasis on teaching and learning. We have dropped the registration link in the chat, or we're about to drop the registration link in the chat. So please feel free to check that out and join us. We're very excited to build this partnership, and we've got some really fun stuff planned for the course. But without further ado, we will dive into the first showcase, and I will throw it over to Joey.
Thanks much. So like Ryan said, throughout today, we're going to provide tours of how you can use AI today. Our hope is that you walk away from the session with ideas of how these tools work and some different prompts you can use within your workflow or with students directly. So I want to kick it off and show you our first AI showcase. So I'm going to expand my screen share so you can hopefully now see ChatGPT alongside our slide deck. And I'm just going to start prompting it live so people can see what this looks like. So I'm an adult education instructor teaching English 101. I want to write a lesson plan for English 101 focusing on Shirley Jackson's The Lottery. So I'll give it some foundation just to help it kind of understand the context. And you can see it's getting to work now writing a lesson plan that is aligned with my goal of developing something to help introduce English, the lottery to an English 101 class. So you can see here, it's now writing the lesson plan. It's outlined for me the materials that I need. What's pretty cool about this chat app though is I can start to interact with it. So unlike a Google search where it's not going to really remember what we've talked about, in this interaction, I can give it feedback and continue working with it. So for example, I can say, what should my learning objectives be? Please list 2 to 3. And it'll then start to generate ideas for what my learning objectives can be. So students will identify and analyze key themes, we'll examine characters, we'll look at symbols. So I can now say, hey, these are our good learning objectives. Let's go with number 1 and number 3. Can you develop a 1-hour lesson plan to be delivered live or synchronously to support those learning objectives? So it wrote a lesson plan, but now I wanted to get more specific and align that lesson plan with specific learning objectives that I have. And so I gave it the learning objectives. And then I also told it I want a 1-hour lesson plan for a live synchronous session. So it's now writing that lesson plan, aligning it with the objectives that we decided, and providing suggested timings for those activities. Let's continue this conversation as it kind of finishes up this current prompt. And I want to write, as it kind of wraps up, I'm going to say, I need an exit ticket. Can you generate a 4-question quiz with 1 question for each level of web's depth of knowledge? Please include the answer key. So objectives, lesson plan, timings for that lesson plan, and now it's finishing with an exit ticket, which is going to be a quiz, 4-question quiz written at different levels of rigor or written at different levels of web's depth of knowledge. So there's a factual recall, then strategic thinking, then extended thinking. I could even take this a step further, saying I don't necessarily like the quiz questions, and I'm going to say, can you rewrite this at an 8th grade reading level or whatever that prompt is? So I wanted to introduce this first high-level use case or showcase because lesson planning is something we all do. And you saw this right, learning objectives, an activity, and a quiz in under 3 minutes. And as you also saw, I engaged with it, gave it feedback, and tried to make it stronger as we worked together. So it helps me save time. It helps me generate some creative ideas. And then I can work with it and take or leave whatever I like from that activity. And so our first AI use case, as you saw, was writing a lesson plan. And I'm just kind of curious, what do you think? What do you notice? What do you wonder? What reactions do you have? We're going to do, if time allows, 5 or 6 showcases like this, illustrating different ways that ChatGPT can be used. And so we're interested now just at a high level. What did you see? What did you like? What could be different? I'm curious as people kind of react to this initial use of using a chat bot to help us generate a lesson plan.
Yeah, we had some great questions come up in the chat. One was, can we ask it to align specifically to state standards? And then somebody asked, is the free version of ChatGPT going to get us the same results as sort of the paid version?
Yeah, great question. To that, it varies. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It can be a little slower, but in my experience, the quality seems pretty similar. But I'm just one user, and you know, the way I interact with it is probably different than how you will. And so I encourage you all to experiment as well and get online, share your experience with other educators so we can explore this new technology together.
Yeah, and Harrison had a really great comment about ChatGPT only going up to September 2021. So that's if certain things, like if you wanted state standards that are more recently published, it's not that you couldn't use it, but you'd have to teach ChatGPT what those standards are. So you could copy and paste the standards into ChatGPT and then specifically ask it to make a lesson based on that. But if it's before September 2021, they won't be able to pull it from the data stream. How specific can we be with regard to meeting required NRS goals with ChatGPT?
Yeah, good question. Some of those I'm going to ask you to put into the Q&A, and we'll come back to those at the end. And so there's a lot coming in through the chat. So if we miss any of that, just put it in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get to it at the end. And I see some good reactions, people saying, hey, is this as creative as a human? There's some good detail here, maybe a helpful tool for saving time. I don't think there's a right answer to this. Like, yes, sometimes it's more creative, sometimes it's less creative, sometimes it's good detail, sometimes it's not. This is really new technology, and in my opinion, it's essential that we kind of explore it together. So as you continue observing the lesson plan, I want to jump into our second showcase, which is about writing professional emails. And so I'm going to come over here and open up a new thread, because threads are knowledgeable. So I can have interactions and it retains memory across that thread. So if I'm starting a new topic, I'm not working on the lesson plan anymore. Now I'm shifting to a new project. I'll usually start a new thread. It's not essential, but it can be helpful for retaining knowledge. And in this one, I want to showcase professional emails as a use case for a chat bot. So I'm going to say, I'm not feeling well today and need to let my supervisor know I'm taking a sick day. Can you write a short email? So let's see how it does with this prompt to let my supervisor know that I need to take a sick day. It's given me a subject line at the top. I'm not feeling well and will be able to come in for work. I'll be sure to catch up on any missed tasks when I return. Thank you for understanding. Best regards. And then a placeholder for my name. So as you're kind of looking at this email example, I want to shift our question a little bit. How could something like this be a meaningful learning experience for students? So in this example, I had the chatbot write an email to let my supervisor. How could I assign something like this to my students? What would a lesson plan like this look like in a classroom in which student is having the chatbot generate an email? What kind of activities could we do after that email has been generated, or before, or as part of a lesson plan? So I'm going to pause here, give everyone 30 seconds, a minute to think through this. We had the chatbot generate a professional email. How could this exercise be used alongside students in our classrooms? Laura, thank you for being the first brave response to our question. And I think that's awesome. Yeah, developing and refining prompts to get the information. So an evaluative activity with students where they're maybe provided criteria. How can I make this email better? Is it aligned with my goal? Is it the right tone? So we can almost teach reading and writing skills by actually getting students hands-on into ChatGPT. Robin noting it can help with grammar, it can help with business writing. Rewriting, awesome idea. Ask AI to improve an email that you wrote. Don with a cool idea for a task. Yeah, and so I hope through these first two use cases, we're just kind of highlighting, hey, we can use it to save time writing a lesson plan. We could also use it as part of a lesson with students, in which students are jumping in and using this chatbot themselves as well. And yeah, August, I think that's a very cool idea, which is comparing how I would write and how an AI read it. So I'm going to first, as a student, write this lesson on my own, then ask AI to write the same email, and then the activity will be to compare and contrast. What's similar, what's different, what have we learned through that kind of comparison activity.
I think one of the other things that can be really useful is teaching tone using AI and teaching different types of ways of writing things, not just in sort of the personal and professional sense, but like writing something in a sympathetic tone, an empathetic tone, understanding that sometimes when we write professional emails, we may be a little heated, and how do we actually use ChatGPT to clean up that language so that we don't come off as heated, and sort of controlling our tone can be a really great. You can also do some really fun things like Joey's doing right now, where you can actually ask ChatGPT to write in a specific style or a specific approach, such as Shakespearean.
Okay, thank you all for checking out our showcases with lesson plans and also with writing professional emails. Like I said, we're going to do 6 or 7 showcases, so we hope you'll stick around and check out the different ways that we think AI tools can be used. With that, I just want to talk very briefly about what this technology is, what makes it potentially so powerful, and why it's showing so much promise for the future of teaching and learning. So simply put, AI is code, just like any other app on your phone or software on your computer like Microsoft Word. This is a software technology. It's unique in a few different ways, though, in the sense that it can learn on its own without being assigned to do that specific task. So with a Google search, it's just executing code that's already been written. But if you think about a driverless car, for example, which is one example of artificial intelligence, it's learning as it goes. It hasn't necessarily seen the specific street corner or stop sign or other pedestrians that it's interacting with in live. And there's not necessarily a programmer in the car that's just telling the car what to do. The car is taking in information and then learning about its environment as it goes. So it's designed to essentially do what humans can do without necessarily being directed to do so by a programmer. So I think the simplest way to think about it is artificial intelligence is designed to do things that normally require human intelligence. It makes decision about what's relevant and what isn't. And kind of thinking back to the examples we just looked at, it's also generative, meaning that it can create new content. So the lesson plan we just looked at, or the email we just wrote, doesn't necessarily exist elsewhere on the internet in that exact form. There's variations of it, but with a Google search, I'm just getting information that already exists in that exact state on the internet. With AI, it's creating or generating based on patterns and trends it's found in that source data. I'm sure everybody's heard this data point by now. It's really popular. ChatGPT came out in November of last year, and it was the fastest app ever to get to 100 million users, something that took Gmail 5 years to reach. It took ChatGPT 2 months. And so you're hearing a lot about it for good reason. It is very popular and lots of people are using it. Today, we're going to look primarily at two tools, which are ChatGPT and then Google's version, which is called Bard. But I think it is helpful to remember that AI is in a lot of tools that we use already. And we're just kind of looking at the most popular chatbots. So for example, Adobe is integrating AI into its popular suite of Photoshop and Illustrator and other tools, where you can just give it a text prompt to like add lines on a road, which you'll see in this example here. I would like you to generate yellow road lines, and it automatically adds it to the image. So any of you that are designers, I think this tool is going to be very popular because you can essentially start to graphic design high quality materials for your program without actually being a designer. Continuing on, there's also some powerful AI tools that are getting built into things like Zoom. So for example, you can have an AI bot listen to your meeting, automatically generate meeting notes, and then assign action items. So for example, if I show up late to a meeting, I can be in the chatbot saying, hey, what did I miss? And then at the end of the meeting, I can query or message the chatbot saying, what are my action items? What are my tasks? What are my due dates? And so it's helping us improve our productivity as well through that kind of passive monitoring of our conversations. Continuing on, we've seen these questions in there. Are AI tools free? Yes, no, maybe somewhere in between. It depends a lot on the tool. A lot of them are free now. We obviously are not sure what these companies are going to do long-term with their pricing models, but ChatGPT and Bard, the two tools we're going to look at today, can be accessed and used for free. Just need to create an account to be able to use it. A very popular question is, will AI take our jobs? Will AI replace us as teachers? I think the short answer from my perspective is we don't know. I think there's a lot of room for discussion and debate around what this technology is going to do in the future. The one thing I would like to highlight is that there's generally always anxiety like this, and we've gathered a bunch of newspaper headlines from the last 100 years showcasing that every time there's new technology that comes out, there's usually fear associated with it that it's going to take our jobs or replace the need for humans. My general opinion, and I'm sure there are people in this room that disagree with me, which is great, is that this is a tool and it probably will eliminate some jobs and create other new jobs. To cite one of our advisors, Christopher Lafayette, says, AI is probably not going to replace your job, but you might be replaced by someone that knows how to use AI well. And so we're of the belief that it's essential to explore how to use these tools and learn collaboratively around from peers around the country as we build these AI skill sets together. I personally believe it can, at least right now, help us save time and enhance our roles as instructors. But I'm excited to learn from everybody in this call too, as we explore this technology together. And then to kind of wrap this section before we look at another showcase, is ChatGPT just a fancy Google search? I kind of spoke to that before. There are similarities in the sense that it can capture and share information that's found on the web, but there are some differences in the sense that it can do more powerful automation end to end, for example, a driverless car. It can also generate new content and create new content based on patterns it sees. So I'm going to pause there as I get ready for the next showcase. Any questions, comments, reactions about kind of our introduction to what AI is? Or Ryan, anything in the chat that we should speak to now?
Yeah, there's some robust conversation going on in chat around, creating things, whether they're accurate, what is it actually, can somebody detect if something is made? So we'll be talking about that shortly, so we won't answer that quite just yet. Also, we've been having some participants share out some really wonderful resources that they've found useful. So somebody shared out, Lisa, you shared out a Chrome extension for helping make pre-made prompts. And Kathy was talking about a magic rewrite option on Canva to help make materials, which that sounds really helpful. And Rachel, always great to see you sharing a bunch of resources from World Ed, who's doing a lot of great work in the AI space as well. What are your... Oh, go ahead, Joy.
Yeah, cool. Again, any questions that we miss in the chat, please pop them into the Q&A and we'll try to answer them there during the call or at the end of the session. With that, I want to kind of turn our attention to another showcase, which is data analysis. And I'm going to use Bard. So this is now Google's version of a chatbot. So in this spreadsheet here, I have a bunch of essentially fake data. Imagine this were actual school performance data. I didn't want to use real data here, so I just kind of generated some raw data about schools, their graduation rates, their college enrollment rates, essentially different data points that reflect the quality of school or programming offered at each school. So I want to showcase what we can do with these chatbots. If I take this data and copy it, I can paste it directly into Bard and ask it some interesting questions. So for example, what's the top performing school in this data set? And then I just raw paste that data into the prompt, give it a minute or so to kind of process that data and figure out how it's going to answer this question of what's the top performing school in this data set. So as you can see, it has now generated a response. It's saying the school 02M416, again, just kind of some fake data, had the highest quality review score and the highest college ready score. So not only does it evaluate what it thinks is the highest performing school, me, methodology, and one nice feature about Bard that I appreciate a lot is it is directly interfaced with Google Sheets. So if I want, I can actually take this data and bring it directly into a Google Sheet where I can manipulate it and sort it and clean it and then pull it back into Bard. But before I do that, I want to kind of follow up. This is a helpful starting point. But let's say I'm a school administrator and I'm giving this data to my team. What are the ways that they can kind of analyze this data set? So if you were giving this data to school administrators, what questions would you encourage them to ask to make data-informed decisions that improve student outcomes? So this isn't me asking it to analyze the data. In this example, I want it to help me generate discussion questions so I can enter my team meeting prepared to have a rich conversation about our school's performance. So how are students performing compared to other schools in the district? Why is this one specific school performing so well? What trends and patterns do we notice there? So what's kind of helpful for me in this example is that not only can it do some data analysis for me, but I can also, as a school leader, use it to generate discussion questions to help prepare for a team meeting. Maybe send out those discussion questions ahead of time so people show up ready to have an interesting conversation. If I'm not sure about one of its questions, I can follow up and say, for example, how would you attempt to answer a question like this? And I'll put it in quotes so it knows which question I'm talking about. because it gave me a discussion question, but I was left wanting more. I was kind of wondering, hey, where can I go from here? How would I facilitate this conversation as a school leader? And this is now helping me understand a process that my team can go through. We identify data, we normalize the data, we calculate statistics, we can create visualizations. So this is now giving me guidance as a school director to be able to enter my team meetings ready to facilitate a meaningful conversation in which we're looking at data and using that data to make informed decisions about our program. So at this point, I'm curious to hear, and I see everybody in the chat already. Thank you so much for that. What data questions are you curious about? I'm wondering, like, what comes to mind as you look at this showcase? What questions do you think you could bring data-wise into ChatGPT or Bard?
Somebody had a really interesting question about, like, does putting certain data into ChatGPT constitute a privacy violation? While there is not necessarily a definitive legal answer at this point, because I don't think anybody's been sued yet, but I'm sure somebody will be at some point in the near future, what we would say is you shouldn't, just like anything else, if you're going to put something on the internet, it shouldn't have unique student identifiers. So use something like an ID number or a placeholder number that can't be tracked back to the student. No student demographic information or personal information should ever be put into ChatGPT. That's just sort of a thing you should avoid in general.
Rebecca, thank you for jumping in to join the conversation. Yeah, I think we can look at graduation trends, rates compared across different groups. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, one of the things that I think why we include this showcase is a lot of people have been doing a lot of work thinking about how to use ChatGPT for things related to writing, but a lot of people haven't been looking at how robust like things like AI, like Bard, can be at analyzing data and providing you quick outcomes. Obviously, you have to be careful with any type of data analysis that you're fully trusting to somebody that's not you. So you should always check their work. That's probably a good segue into our next conversation. So, as we've already sort of ventured into pretty deeply here into the chat, right? ChatGPT AI is not perfect. This is an emergent technology, okay? There is very meaningful limitations and considerations. It is a new technology, which means that it can be used for good things, it can be used for bad things. It can be really helpful, or it can be really dangerous, okay? We do not want to present a sort of evangelist approach to AI here, that AI is all wonderful, all great, all useful. AI is still having trouble providing super accurate information on the regular basis. So it is not something that you can trust to help you write a peer-reviewed journal or a dissertation. It is something that is meant to be used with what we would call, I was a history teacher, and we would call it a skeptic's approach to history. You don't want to be a cynic, you want to be a skeptic, right? And so be skeptical about what ChatGPT is producing for you, but that doesn't mean that you should dismiss it entirely. Some of the limitations that we know of is that it can occasionally give inaccurate answers. Sometimes it can do limited length prompts and responses and requires a lot of cajoling to get where it needs to be. The data set is limited to before September 2021, and obviously they are sort of increasing that as time goes on. And sometimes the data is biased. So, right, there's an important framing here. ChatGPT and many AI tools pull from the wider knowledge base of the internet. Okay, which means that if it's going to pull information, it may pull information from whatever the loudest voice in the room is, not necessarily the most accurate voice in the room. So if you ask it for data or statistics, it might pull for you the things that have been reposted the most or have the most relevancy related to that prompt. It may not pull something super obscure but accurate. So be aware of those limitations. Also understand that as it relates to sort of plagiarism, there's a couple different lenses of this, but let's go to the next slide since it's sort of like a whole spiel kind of thing. So we talk a lot the most common question that we get is about plagiarism, okay? And we get it from almost every angle, which is the plagiarism side of you creating something. Is that your real original work? What if our students use ChatGPT to finish assignments, et cetera, et cetera? This is just our opinion on this topic. We are not speaking for all AI people everywhere, all AI educators or COABE, but our personal philosophy on this is that AI is like the calculator. The calculator was first thought to be cheating when it was used, and then people realized how to implement it deliberately in their classrooms in order to make it useful. If you have really higher order thinking learning objectives, ChatGPT is going to be a tool for that, but the student would still have to demonstrate competency in using ChatGPT to be able to get those answers. Also, you're going to see coming up, if you haven't already, so I work in higher ed as well, and people are already trying to sell AI detectors. So just be cognizant of the fact that that's pretty much bunk at this point. I can actually, there's already tons of websites that allow you to copy and paste a response from ChatGPT, which will clean it of any sort of recognition of ChatGPT. So it's already really hard for these detectors to figure things out in the first place. But the reality is that an entrepreneurial student who knows how to Google is going to figure out how to present their work as 100% made by them. And there will be no way, even with software, for you to know. Okay, so trying to like pay $50,000 to $100,000 for your school to get some software that's going to check for AI, this is actually just like a really bad, inefficient approach, because people that are effective at hiding this stuff are going to hide it regardless of what you do, regardless of what you say. There will always be a technology that erases another technology, right? And so be advised that AI detectors do not really work. Even the ones that have some limited capacity are very easy to fool just by taking one extra step. So for us, what this means is that we should start building teaching and learning approaches that incorporate AI, that set students up for success in using AI, that encourage students to credit AI as appropriate, like you would credit any other source, right? Joey and I use AI every single day in our work, every single day, right? We don't go to every single person and say, oh, by the way, I made this with AI, right? So having your students have an expectation that you wouldn't have for yourself is not necessarily a good standard of measurement. But again, this is just our opinion. We understand that there's a lot of versatility and diverse opinions on this particular topic, but we think AI should be something you should be skeptical of, but that you should be embedding deliberately and not trying to punish students for using it, but instead teaching them how to use it ethically and responsibly, just like you would any other resource. All right, so as a sort of quick review of the types of things that that we talked about thus far, we established what is AI, what types of AI exist, is it free, complicated, and getting more complicated every day, right? So like just a really quick cool share, you can now get AI headshots. Many of you may have found this. This is a great resource, but like they started out free. Now it's very difficult to find an AI headshot website that doesn't charge you 25 or 30 bucks. So just be aware that things are going to be shifting as things become more and more utilized. Things that were free are going to start to cost money. Things that are not useful are going to get faded out. And then we talked a little bit about whether or not it will take our jobs. Short answer, no. And then what about plagiarism, which is a debate we'd be happy to continue to engage with, and that we hope the entire space is engaging with. And now I'm going to throw it back to Joey to do another quick showcase.
Thanks so much. Okay, yeah, like Ryan said, I want to keep these showcases going, and so I'm going to show two examples now. These are maybe two of my favorite, just because they're so effective at helping me save time. So I want to show how AI can be used to summarize an article. Get articles sent to me all the time, articles, friends, family, colleagues. Don't always have time to read all of them. So I want to show one way that AI can be used. So here's an example. There's an article that I got sent a couple weeks ago about the US yield curve. I'm really interested in economics. the article itself was kind of complicated. I wasn't entirely sure what it was saying. And so AI can be used to summarize text that you give it as well. I think that's helpful to remember because yes, it's been trained on data through 2021, September 2021, ChatGPT specifically. And so if you're looking for current information, it can't find it on its own. But if you provide it content, it can analyze, assess, summarize, synthesize data from that conversation. Okay, so one nifty trick I'll show you that I really like is you can put Chrome into reading mode, which just essentially pulls out all of the text. I find that to be helpful because it's a little easier to kind of copy and paste from here. So I just kind of scroll down and it allows me to copy and paste this content. So I will say, can you summarize this article? And I will, like I said, paste it in. I can't give it a link, but I can paste it in. And so it reads the article, and now it's giving me a summary about what the inverted yield curve means, what it typically signals historically. It's writing me a summary. But as we've looked at, threads are knowledgeable. I can continue this conversation. So I can say, for example, like, hey, that was kind of confusing. Can you write it at a lower grade level? So it'll now take the explanation I've given it, or it's given me, and simplify it. And so this can be used with any text to rewrite it at a second grade reading level, a sixth grade reading level, a 10th grade reading level, a college level. And so that's kind of interesting to me to be able to take different content, differentiate it by reading level, but still allow all students to engage in a classroom discussion. I'll take it a step further and say generate a one-sentence summary because I want to try to simplify this as much as I can and just have a quick understanding of what this article says. I'll take it a step further and say, if I'm a student learning about inverted yield curves, what other questions should I ask to help me continue learning about this topic? And so this one to me feels the most powerful, which I appreciate a lot. As a student, if I understand this kind of process, I can use ChatGPT almost as a tutor that's helping support me 24/7. So I can take an article and get a summary of that article. I can have that summary written at a different grade level. I can have it simplified into one sentence or two, and then I can have it generate questions for me. So now I know what topics to build out my own research, my own learning pathway. So as a student, if I can prompt this effectively, I've got this article summarized, and now I know what questions I can keep asking. What causes a yield curve to invert? That question alone is a pretty deep, profound research question that I can take in any direction. How reliable is it as a predictor of recessions? So this is the kind of thing that I see potentially being very powerful with students to be able to take complex topics, distill it into more understandable formats, but then also provide a basis for ongoing research so I can continue querying it, using Google, talking to classmates, talking to my instructor, and so forth. The second example I want to show that I also really appreciate. Actually, before I do that, quick questions for the group. What would you ask next in this instance? Like if you had an article summarized, where would you take the conversation from here? Pause for 30 seconds. Ryan, feel free to jump in if I've missed anything in the chat.
Yep. Still having a lot of fun debates about process and product and plagiarism. Belinda asked, can it be translated to another language?
Great question. Let me expand this again. Can you rewrite the article summary in Spanish? Give it a try. Yeah, so Belinda and Rachel, I really like the idea together there. So it's rewriting it in Spanish now, but as Rachel noted, you can also prompt it with the format. Can you generate the article summary as a bulleted list with one sentence per bullet? Now it's kind of simplifying that, giving that format we talked about. And then Anthony, very cool idea. So I give students an article, they write a summary of it. We also have ChatGPT write a summary. Then the classroom activity becomes a compare and contrast, in which we're working together to kind of assess the differences between the two. So cool idea there, man. So article summaries, check that one out. And the meeting minutes one I'm going to show shortly after Ryan talks through some prompt engineering tips and tricks.
All right. So you've probably heard this word, or you may have heard this word being thrown around, prompt engineering. It's a really fancy way of just saying, how do you communicate with AI to get the most effective responses humanly possible? So I'm going to run through just a really quick example. We'll be diving much, much deeper on this particular topic in our course because we think it's really helpful. But let's start with just sort of a quick example here. So, for example, if you start with something really basic, like tell me about William Shakespeare, you're going to get really generalized information. And effectively at that point, you're kind of treating it like Google. What you want to do is you want to effectively prompt it to get the information that you're looking for. So as you can see, we sort of built on that and said, can you provide a brief biography of William Shakespeare, including his early life, career, and contributions to literature? Then we start building on. So AI works best by teaching it, by communicating with it longer, right? So you don't want to sort of like create a new prompt or a new question every single time. You want to build on something that you've already established to make it stronger and stronger. Think of it like how we would think about supporting students. It needs time to build mastery. So revise, repeat, inform, give feedback, and it will improve its product over time. So some other really quick things you can do: you can define the output, you can offer really clear context about who you're trying to do. If you say, oh, build me a lesson plan, but you don't say what grade it's for, it's going to build you a very generalized lesson plan. Whereas if you say, I'm preparing a lesson plan for 10th grade English class on X, it's going to build specific to that content. Also be really cognizant of setting the tone and expectations. So if you sort of look at that final prompt, that is what we would consider to be like a fairly effective prompt. But even from there, it's not going to give you a perfect answer. You're going to have to go in and play with it. You might say, oh, actually, I don't like these two activities. Can you do a jigsaw, a think, pair, share, and then also do an experiential activity and give me 5 ideas for experiential activities, right? So you can continue to build and grow on it. In general, we also just wanted to highlight some examples of how these tools might be useful, just at a very quick high level for students, teachers, and administrators. So for students, you can use AI or ChatGPT, for example, to do brainstorming starting points, to provide research support, to be a writing aid, to offer language practice. For many of our adult education professionals, you may have an English language learner in your classroom, but may not have a ton of resources to support that English language learner. ChatGPT and a lot of the tools that are being made in this space are really fantastic for supporting English language learners. So we love to see that. And then also, if you're looking for offering advice about career navigation, interview prep, ChatGPT, you can give it an idea and say, hey, I'm interviewing for this job, and you can paste in a job description and say, can you ask me 5 or 10 questions that might come up in an interview for this particular job? So there's a lot of different ways you can use AI, that students can directly use AI. Of course, as teachers, you also can use it to write curriculum, to generate discussion questions, to offer different perspectives. So this is really important as a historian when I'm teaching my history classes. Oftentimes history is taught from a very singular great man theory perspective, and you lose a lot of different diverse perspectives. What you can do is, in addition to providing actual resources that create a little bit more of a well-rounded story, you can specifically prompt AI to give you some thoughts on how an 18th century serf might think about this particular issue. Now, again, you have to check it for accuracy and therefore, but just be aware it's a very strong and useful tool in helping you create a diversity of materials. All of these things, writing curriculum, questions, diverse perspective, supplemental teaching, we're going to be talking about all 4 of those in the course. So if these are of interest to you, please feel free to join us in that course. And then for administrators, we're not going to forget you. It can be really, really useful for a lot of practical application things like generating communication and outreach, developing grant proposals, creating program policies, budget planning, even developing a whole, professional development. Like when Joey and I went to go build our course, the very first thing that we did is we did a brainstorming session with the two of us. Then we threw in ChatGPT to that brainstorming session. Then we took ChatGPT out of that brainstorming session, right? And so we utilized it as a tool to help us come up with our own professional development structures. So really useful there. And then in the interest of time, Joey, do you either want to move through the meeting minutes quickly, or do you want to skip that and go on to the next stuff?
Yeah, I'll briefly show meeting minutes, but it can be quick because I'm a project manager and I appreciate its ability to summarize things for me. I have AI or not AI. Let's jump into that, and then we'll come back to meeting minutes if we have time at the end. So as Ryan said, we're going to play a quick game here. We're going to put a couple of images on screen, and your task is to decide which of the two is generated by AI. So we have two images on screen now. Which is created by the robot? You can see we have A or B at the top.
Oh, it's looking pretty split so far. Sierra, I appreciate your no idea. That's a great response.
So the correct answer here was A was made by a robot. I really like Lilani's comment in the middle there, which is why does it matter? It's also a great perspective. I'll circle back to that idea second. And then we have one more puzzle on screen. Which image was created by AI? Wonder if everyone's guessing B just because they don't think I'll use A as the correct answer twice. We have a bunch of educators that know how to gamify a multiple choice quiz. And they were correct. The correct answer here is B. There's tons of these online, AI or not AI quizzes. And the reason I like this activity at Brief, A, it's fun and interactive, quick game, quick session, but B, it's just becoming increasingly difficult to tell the difference between the two. And I think that speaks to the power of some of these apps. So with that, we have about 8 minutes left. We want to make sure there's time for Q&A, and we also want to share some ways that you can continue learning about AI after today. So I'll hand it back to you.
All right, so I want you to imagine that it is 1995 and the internet was sort of just coming into its popularity, right? Maybe you you were one of those people that was skeptical about the internet and you decided it wasn't that important because you thought it was a fad. This tends to be sort of where people are falling in the camp of AI right now. They either aren't really that interested in it or they're very interested in it. We believe that sort of the AI revolution is coming and that it's already here, but that it is only going to further enhance and change our lives. Like Joey said, you'd be hard pressed at this point to find something that you do on the daily that isn't already impacted by machine learning or artificial intelligence. Even something as simple as like adaptive cruise control and these types of technologies, autonomous vehicles. So just be cognizant that we believe AI is here to stay. One Silicon Valley sort of founder that Joey had talked to recently said it's sort of like agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, technological and information revolution, and then sort of AI revolution. So we believe that we owe it to our students, the adult education population, to think deeply about what this technology means and to help us create more accessible and impactful learning experiences for our student population. So we do understand that there's some uncertainty here. We understand that this is a unique challenge. There's anybody, we are here giving our expertise, but we are not experts. Nobody is an expert. Hasn't been around long enough for anybody to be an expert, right? There is just people that are very passionate about it and have spent a lot of time in the last couple of years working on it, but this has not been around for 20 years. So there isn't any undisputed champions of AI knowledge, right? So we believe it's essential to just start trying things, to play around, have a spirit of curiosity and creativity. So what we would invite you to do is to sort of, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by this, take a deep breath, start small, and just give it a try, right? Just try it out. You don't have to do all the advanced things that we were doing today. You don't have to build a whole lesson plan. Just try out AI in your workshop, in your life. see what happens. You might find it useful, you might not. It's sort of like riding a bike, right? Once you get started and you realize what it can do, it becomes very, very fun to do. And so we highly encourage you to do that. We also want to share with you a resource hub that we have created. And it's sort of just a link to a couple different things that we think are useful. We have kept our resource hub sort of very restricted in how much information we share on it, because we know that there is a lot of ton of information if you go onto something like, future tools. So we've tried to sort of cherry pick only things that we think are really worth you talking about or looking at right now. Please feel free to check this out and to use that resource. And just as sort of a basic call to action, we want you to think about trying to use AI for the next 1 to 2 weeks. This could be in your own workflow. This could be with students. You could use it to draft an email, generate feedback, develop a lesson plan. Just give it a try and see what happens. And then, of course, we would love to have you all in our course, which the registration link is up, and Joey will paste it into the chat again. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I will let sort of Joey share our sort of survey here and close this out. I'm going to put that in there. Please take this survey. It's really, really helpful to us as presenters to get this feedback and to hear from you all what you thought of the session and what we could do better or what we can improve. And I'll let Joey take it from there.
Yeah, great. There are a number of questions in here I think we didn't get to, and time has kind of winded down. So I'm going to pop over to Q&A to see as many of those as I can. Where can we find the recording once the webinar is done? Sharon, I think can speak to that, but I believe it'll be on YouTube and on the COABE website. Stephen, I'm not sure I understand the question about mitigating factors related to data. Rebecca, a lot of cool ideas for high school math. I don't actually have a prompt ready for that one, but if anyone has a prompt, I'd be excited to try it live. While we are looking at that, I do want to very briefly show my favorite use, which is meeting minutes. I'm going to say, can you summarize these meeting minutes and action items? Copy and paste the meeting minutes. And I just really appreciate this one as the project manager, because it allows me to quickly summarize, like, hey, these are the key decisions that were made based on your notes. Here are the action items for each person. Here's when the next meeting is. Fantastic, kind of quick way to use it, which I think is cool. Thank you much to COABE for inviting us here today. We're excited to partner with them on the upcoming course. We welcome feedback. Please do reach out if there's any questions or comments or things we can help with, and I will turn it back over to COABE now.
Well, thank you so much, Joey and Ryan with Impactful Education. I know I have been one of the ones who have been a little bit skeptic, gingerly, tiptoeing around it, but this session has really opened up my eyes to a lot of possibilities. So I'm so thankful that you two are here with us today to provide all of us so many ways that AI can, help us do what it is that we love to do, and that's bring new information into the classroom before our students. So we thank you so much for being here today. Look forward to future partnerships with you as we want to make sure we keep everyone well informed and abreast of this ever-changing evolution of technology. And you made me laugh with the whole 1995. You really dated me. But yes, I was a skeptic then. I'm not sure about using the World Wide Web and letting everyone into my home, but you're absolutely right. We have grown and began to use that tool as an everyday necessity in our lives. And I do believe that AI will soon be the same as it was in 1995 with the World Wide Web. We ask that you continue to join us for the rest of Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. We have so much more information to share with you, a lot of events and appointments. And remember, whatever you're doing around your state, make sure you go to COABE website and share it on our Padlet, or you can always email info@coabe.org. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.